The WTA is experiencing a severe crisis. Sponsors are leaving, executives are clambering, and in the middle of everything is a video that was leaked that shows one of tennis's most promising young players, Alex Eala. What began as a private moment has flourished into a public relations nightmare that poses a danger to the basis of tennis for women. Jobs are on the phone. Millions of dollars are disappearing. And the query that everyone has: I want to know how things got to this point. Alex on the WTA. Eala was more than just a name. Roster. She served as a representation and a lighthouse of optimism for a whole country and a generation of young athletes who witnessed themselves in her narrative. Born in the Eala had dreams in the Philippines that went well beyond the courts of Manila. She received training at the Rafa Nadal Spain's academy, slogging through junior competitions with a strong work ethic that attracted the interest of coaches and scouts all over the world. When she finally turned, the tennis world was professional. Observing. Her ascent was swift. Magnificent Slam Junior titles, a girls' US Open singles title. Next, make the switch to the professional circuit, where she not only made it through, she flourished. The way Eala played was fierce, unafraid, and electrifying. She gave each match vitality, a fire fans were reminded of the reasons for their affection. Initially with tennis. However, it wasn't only her game that enthralled audiences. She told the tale. The Philippines have never produced a tennis player. She is a star. She wasn't merely playing for her own benefit. She was carrying the aspirations of millions. Each victory was honored on social media. Each and every unwavering support was shown in the face of loss. Eala become more than just a sportsman. She became a symbol of culture. Brands took notice. Sponsorship agreements came in. Yonks, Nike, large Philippine companies, all of them desired a share in the AY phenomenon. She was also embraced by WTA. She was the ideal representative of their concept of worldwide growth. Young, gifted, relevant, and marketable. She symbolized variety in a sport that had frequently been blamed for not it. The organizers of the tournament highlighted her prominently in advertising efforts. Positive profiles were written by media outlets. She appeared on magazine covers, invited to special occasions, and as the face of the future for women's tennis. However, that prominence also brought enormous, relentless pressure. It was anticipated that Eala would triumph, motivate, and be flawless on and off the court. At least she handled it gracefully. In public. In interviews, she discussed her passion for the game, her appreciation for the assistants, and her dedication to proudly representing her nation. However, behind the scenes, the reality was more intricate. The journey was draining. The anticipations were suffocating. The scrutiny never stopped. Every item of clothing she wore, every individual she was observed in all social media posts, everything was examined, criticized, and examined by both critics and admirers. Eala resided in a glass home. Additionally, the entire world was observing her every action. Nevertheless, she continued to advance. She thought throughout the dream. She had faith in the work. And she thought that as long as she remained loyal to herself, everything would be all right. However, in the modern world, remaining being loyal to oneself isn't always sufficient. Occasionally, one instant, one error, one miscommunication, a single released video can alter everything. Additionally, for Alex Eala, it was almost time. What was contained in that video? And why would it result in a whole organization to turn into anarchy? Maintain observing, since what follows will startle you. It began with a notification, followed by still another. The phone of Alex Eala was in use within hours, overflowing with friend texts, strangers, family, and teammates. A video had appeared on the internet. A video that was never intended for anyone to see, outside of her personal circle. And it was now everywhere. The actual video was blurry, obviously captured without Eala's awareness or agreement. It displayed her at an exclusive meeting away from the courts. There was nothing unlawful about what was recorded. No drugs, no violence, and no criminal behavior. However, context was no longer important. Within the era of viral content, the idea is reality, and the impression was harmful. Eala was seen in the video in an unguarded, carefree moment, chuckling, joking, and using informal language and unprocessed. Friends were present. those she trusted around her. Someone was smoking in the distance. There was booze on a table. It was a typical setting for a young adult allowing off steam following months of exhausting rivalry. However, for a public figure, for an individual who is positioned as an example, it was a disaster for PR. In a day, millions of people had watched the video. Times. It was posted on Tik and Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, and Talk. Pages for fans uploaded it. Articles were written by gossip websites. Sports pundits discussed it on TV. The story swiftly went out of control. A few defended Eala, claiming she had a right to a personal life and that the footage was removed from context. Others denounced, asserting that she had deceived the values that she was meant to stand for. The comments were harsh. Supporters who used to rejoice at her every triumph suddenly doubted her personality. Sponsors who had shown off her face with pride in ads started to re-evaluate their collaborations. Additionally, the WTA, the group that had supported her as a budding star, unexpectedly discovered itself encountering an issue for which it was unprepared to handle. However, who made the video public? That was the query that everyone desired to ask. Responded. There was a lot of speculation. A few thought it was an envious rival or someone in her own camp looking for money or retaliation. It was suggested by others. Was compromised from a personal cloud account. Like wildfire, theories proliferate, each more spectacular than the previous one. But nobody was aware of it. Without a doubt. Furthermore, in the lack of data, the void was filled by rumors. Eala's group moved into crisis mode right away. The agency issued a succinct statement, expressing dissatisfaction with the breach of confidentiality and guaranteeing that there would be legal action against whoever was in charge of the disclosure. Her relatives remained quiet, probably on the counsel from attorneys and public relations experts. Eala herself vanished from social media, taking down her most recent entries, and became dark. However, the quiet only made matters worse. In the void created by in her absence, the internet produced its own story. They created memes. There were a lot of conspiracy theories. A few even fans started to turn against one another, splitting up into defensive camps and critics. The tennis community was breaking. And in the middle of it all was a woman in her 20s who simply wanted to engage in her favorite sport. The leak wasn't merely a transgression. It was a well-planned assault. Whether deliberate or shrewd, it had accomplished its objective. Eala's standing was under siege, and the only harm that was starting. But it gets even worse from here. Worse. The video wasn't merely an issue for Eala. It was going to turn into a monetary disaster for the WTA. Remain alongside me. The initial domino dropped onto a Tuesday early. A well-known sportswear company that had committed Eala to a long-term endorsement agreement issued a statement. It was thoughtfully written, full of corporate terminology on re-evaluating collaborations and brand alignment principles. However, the message was unambiguous. They were putting some distance between them. In 48 hours, 2 other sponsors came after. A premium timepiece brand, a health brand of supplements. Both issued comparable declarations. Both put a halt to their contracts, awaiting more examination. The financial ramifications were enormous. Eala might lose millions of dollars in revenue from endorsements. However, the true shock was still to come. Since this wasn't only about Eala these days. This was concerning the WTA. Numerous brands, not just Eala sponsors, pulled out. They were recognized as WTA partners. They had made significant investments in women's tennis, financing competitions and providing player support development initiatives and funding advertising campaigns. However, they were now wondering if the World Trade Organization was the ideal partner for their brand's perception. In private, executives were terrified. Long conference calls late at night. Teams of lawyers were consulted. They brought in PR firms. The WTA had invested years in creating connections with these sponsors, persuading them that tennis for women was a reliable and profitable investment. Moreover, one video that was leaked now threatened to unravel everything. The criticism came quickly and vicious. Industry insiders started disclosing information to the media. One WTA staffer who wished to remain unnamed told a sports journalist that the company was in complete crisis mode, and that some Eala was being privately blamed by bosses for the consequences. According to another report, that some board members had proposed AY's exclusion from competition till the scandal subsided. However, the sponsors weren't only worried about Eala. They were worried about the WTA's reaction, or, more accurately, its absence. Days had since the video's release, and the organization had not released any public declaration, no backing for Eala, no denunciation of the invasion of privacy, nothing. There was an overwhelming quiet. Supporters observed, tennis reporters observed, and above all, the remaining sponsors observed. Should the WTA be unwilling to support one of its own participants during a crisis, what did that indicate about the entire organization? Trust was eroding. Additionally, in the corporate sponsorships, trust is crucial. A few sponsors started discreetly renegotiating their contracts, adding new provisions that would enable them to leave collaborations if specific PR levels were intertwined. Others just turned to leave, determining that the danger wasn't worth the reward. The monetary losses were mounting. According to industry analysts, that the WTA might lose as much as $50 million if the migration went on. Additionally, it wasn't solely financial. It was concerning legitimacy. The WTA had established itself as an advanced player with an emphasis on arrangement. However, in the view of for many, it appeared more like a business, eager to safeguard its financial results rather than safeguarding its athletes. Though the hypocrisy was obvious. The WTA had honored Eala when she triumphed, put her face on posters, and made use of her tail to get people to buy tickets. However, as soon as she started to pose a risk, they disappeared. The reaction was quick. Previous players started expressing themselves on social media, denouncing the WTA's silence. Commentators on tennis discussed whether the organization had an ethical duty to protect Eala. Online fans began petitions calling for responsibility. Though the story was changing. This wasn't more than just a video leak. This was about the failure of institutions. Additionally, as the sponsors kept going down, the question was more pressing than before. Is the WTA speaking up at last? Or would they allow one of its most brilliant stars to give up to preserve their reputation? Though the silence of the WTA was deafening. However, when they eventually answered, it would have been preferable if they had said nothing at all. Everything. You won't believe what transpired. Next. When the WTA eventually broke it was too little, too late. There was quiet. There was a press release, one concealed paragraph on their website, released late on a Friday afternoon. The majority of folks were not online. The assertion was ambiguous, voicing worries over the circumstance, and highlighting the organization's dedication to players' welfare. However, there was no reference to Eala specifically, no denunciation of the invasion of privacy, no assurance of assistance or research. It seemed like a slap across the face. The tennis community erupted. The statement was torn apart by journalists, separating it, labeling it cowardly and performative. Social media was inundated with fans, voiced disapproval, charging the WTA with leaving one of their own behind. Even a few contemporary athletes who don't often voice their opinions against the group started to convey your annoyance. One unidentified reporter was informed by the player, "If this can occur to Alex, it might occur to any of us, and we now understand that WTA won't have our backs." However, in the background, the situation was considerably more chaotic. Leaked internal emails started to appear. Exchanges between WTA executives that presented a negative image of the priorities of the organization. In a single email, according to a senior official, the WTA should wait for this to pass and refrain from putting Eala in the center of the dispute. Other email addressed the possible financial effects of openly endorsing her, calculating the price of lost sponsors against the players' damaged cost relationships. The emails disclosed what numerous had a suspicion. The WTA was more worried about preserving its reputation rather than safeguarding its participants. Additionally, when those emails were made public, the outcry reached the level of a fever. Previous WTA champion and current pundit Maria Sanchez did not hesitate. In a widely stated in the same interview, "This is just what the system is flawed. These teenage athletes are used to market the sport, to draw sponsors, to fill stadiums, but as soon as something incorrect, they can't be located." Alex was worthy of better. She was due. assistance. The truth was what she deserved. Though the WTA had to react because to backlash. Once more, the CEO this time showed up in a video statement, meticulously planned and obviously practiced. She said compassion for Eala and denounced the breach of privacy. She discussed the dedication of WTA to mental health and player well-being. She pledged that the company would examine its policies and do better going forward. However, there was harm. The assertion felt dishonest, fake, and hollow. It's ignored the emails that were leaked. It's failed to provide an explanation for the organizations took a very long time to reply. Furthermore, it didn't provide Eala with any tangible assistance. No legal support, no public defense, no confirmation that she would be safe proceeding. Critics noted that the WTA had promptly issued remarks regarding other issues, social justice causes, political issues, even small infractions of the rules. However, when one was being attacked by one of their own players, when her personal space was infringed upon and they hesitated because their careers were at stake. It was impossible to avoid the double standard. Disregard. Then the revelation arrived. That exacerbated the situation. And an investigative journalist discovered records demonstrating that the WTA had been in discussions with multiple sponsors even prior to the scandal. A few of those sponsors had voiced worries on Eala's marketability, mentioning her age and the dangers of being young, unproven athletes. The inference was obvious. The WTA was already thinking of removing themselves from Eala. The video release merely provided them with an explanation. The world of tennis was in startle. Was everything calculated? Possessed the WTA permitted Eala to be placed beneath the bus to maintain more profitable collaborations? The inquiries were explosive, and the WTA lacked any responses. Eala, meanwhile, stayed quiet. Her social media profiles remained dark. Her team kept deteriorating. Requests for interviews. However, those near she talked of a young lady who was grieved, perplexed, and experiencing completely deserted by the company once she had trusted. The WTA had not succeeded. Everyone was aware of her. However, Eala was not going to remain silent indefinitely. Moreover, when she did speak, her remarks would rock the tennis world as a whole. This is what she stated. In the months that follow Eala's heartfelt declaration, the women's tennis scene changed in ways that nobody could have foreseen. A few sponsors did come back, but not all of them, to indicate a shift in public opinion in favor of Eala. An important sports brand that had first alienated itself quietly started working together again, making a declaration regarding the second opportunities and encouraging resilience athletes. Naturally, it was a PR move. However, it was also an acknowledgement that Eala's following was too strong to disregard. However, additional sponsors never showed up. Back. The high-end, luxury brands' recommendations, they proceeded to safer wagers on athletes with less contentious histories. Eala's earning capacity required a struck. According to industry commentators, she lost $15 to $20 million in revenue from endorsements. For a young athlete still developing her career, it was a terrible blow. Eala persisted though. She participated in competitions and won matches, and gradually started to reconstruct her public perception. Her on-court performance was perhaps even more fierce than before. Her game had a new advantage, a tenacity derived from hardship. Supporters observed, observers observed, and over time, the story started to change. From scandal to redemption once more. Meanwhile, the WTA had to deal with its own taking stock. A number of senior following the incident, executives quietly resigned. Of the dispute, the company declared extensive changes, such as new safeguards for players' privacy, required mental health assistance, as well as reorganized the crisis response group. They collaborated with advocacy organizations and employed advisors to revamp their player policies for relations. But doubters wondered if these modifications were authentic or just aesthetic. Previous players continued to be harsh, claiming that the WTA's history was self-evident. Once lost, trust is difficult to rebuild. Fix. Additionally, many in the tennis neighborhood, the harm to the WTA's reputation lasted a lifetime. The video itself was used as a case study in internet ethics and privacy law. Lawful experts disagreed about who was at fault and what options are available to victims of such leaks. Had Eala's legal team made several routes, bringing legal action against websites that provided the video and looking into the leak's origin. Although progress was sluggish, the message was obvious. She was retaliating. Maybe above all else, Alice's tale provoked a more extensive discussion over how young female athletes are treated, the exploitation, the application of double standards, the unrealistic expectations. Her bravery in speaking up encouraged others to do the same. Their personal encounters. Emotion was developing, one that required respect, responsibility, and systemic shift. Regarding Eala herself, she continues to concentrate on her work. She is undergoing training. More difficult than before, getting ready for the next season and aiming for Grand Slam championships. She is now older, not in years, but in experience. She's discovered difficult lessons about notoriety, confidence, and the cost of being in the spotlight. In a recent interview, she was questioned about having any regrets. She hesitated, thinking the query, after which he stated, "I apologize that it occurred. I regret the suffering it caused, but I'm glad I spoke up. Because nothing would happen if I remained silent. Might alter. Additionally, perhaps, just possibly, my tale can benefit the upcoming young athlete who faces something similar." It was a strong moment, a reminder that even in the most sinister scandals, there may be development, fortitude, and optimism. The tennis world continues to observe Eala. Some are hoping for her return, while some are anticipating the next slip-up, but one there's no doubt that she won't be forgotten. Her tale is now included into the history of sport, a warning story, and simultaneously an inspiration, and as the WTA is still dealing with the ramifications. One question remains: will they find out? Will they actually change as a result of this? Will the same thing be revealed in the next crisis? Shortcomings, identical priorities, and the similar readiness to give up their players in order to make money?